Good morning. I'm David Breeden. I'm the senior minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, and this is Coffee and Wisdom when we look at trends within religion and philosophy and American culture, trying to figure out what's going on in the world from a spiritual and religion standpoint. This week, I do want to talk about the way that people are leaving denominations, especially denominations, and consider two groups, the SBNRs, the spiritual but not religious, and the nuns, N-O-N-E-S. These are not the same people, usually, although the Venn diagram, there is a little bit of overlap. But as we shall see, they're not really the same for the most part and have very different reasons for having left traditional religions. This is one of my favorite signs. I've got nothing against God. It's this fan club I can't stand. And that is a very typical way of summing up the SBNR way. So this week, the attack of the SBNRs. Who are they? What do they want? And then we will also get to the nuns later in the week. I showed this graphic last week. It's the decline of religion in 60 years. And yeah, from 1952 to 2012. And yes, if you are a business, you don't want that graph to look like that. There is a problem in the traditional religious structures in the United States. One example of this is one that's very close to Unitarian Universalism. Both groups started out as Congregationalists. Both are descended from at least part of the matrix are the Puritans who came to Massachusetts. So very old United States connections here in terms of religious traditions. United Church of Christ membership. If you look at it from 1957, almost 2.3 million people, 2.2 probably is where that's standing, and then below 900,000 in 2017. So that's a big drop, as you can well see. I pulled this from a website called 6 Decades of Decline in the United Church of Christ. It's just a note someone left. I am a former UCC, United Church of Christ member. I was a member for over 40 years, but found myself searching for more from my local church and denomination. I felt spiritually empty. I was led to a non-denominational church which filled that emptiness with a focus on Jesus Christ rather than on social justice. All right, so you can hear one complaint here is that there's too much social justice talk and not enough religious talk going on in this denomination. But there's also a slow burn of problems about that. Now, prior to 2000, half of all Americans belong to a specific denomination. So this is not 1957 we're talking about here. Prior to the year 2000, half of all Americans belong to a specific Protestant denomination. Now, 30% do. And again, as that 30%, very few of those are actually regular attenders nowadays. Now, the Barna Group is a group that studies specifically topics of religion. I get calls from them from time to time doing polls of ministers across the country, both liberal and conservative. So this is from their research. Love Jesus, but not the church, okay? Love Jesus, but not the church. So here we have the people who say that. We have males at 39%. So this is the church of Jesus, not the church about Jesus, is one of the ways that this is often phrased. 61% of females, all right? Now, one of the things you're going to notice here is millennials at 14%. They don't even love Jesus at this point, right? They are the nuns, and that we'll be talking about later in the week, who really haven't had very much exposure at all to any kind of Christianity or religious tradition in the United States. They've grown up secular, and these are the largest group now because of the natural reduction of boomers through age. So that's a very important trend to keep one's eye on. But you'll also notice that, yes, females largely make up the group, 61%, who love Jesus but not the church. Also, you'll notice that The Gen Xers and Boomers are the two groups that say this most prominently. And so what you have going on here then is a female Boomer and Gen Xer exit from traditional religion. And that's important to remember that those are the largest numbers, although certainly not the only one. So the Barna Group separates the SBNRs, the spiritual but not religious, into groups number 1 and group number 2. For group number 1, religion is not important. They have simply left the ideas of religion behind, or they have perhaps adopted other religious traditions and into a kind of casserole of religious traditions. We've discussed this before in Coffee and Wisdom. There's a lot of lead up to that in the 19th century. And so if you want to think some more about that, you can check us out on Den of Conversation on YouTube, and there's some discussions of that a few weeks ago. So SBNR number 1 group, religion is no longer important to them. SBNR number 2 group, spirituality is very important. Not religion, spirituality is very important. So of the people that the Barna Group talked to, religion is mostly harmful, is the statement. Over 1/4 of Americans agree strongly or somewhat that religion is mostly harmful. 73% disagree strongly or somewhat. So this is a fairly bold question here. Religion is mostly harmful. Yes or no? All right. So SBNR group number 1, those are the ones who are done with religion. 45% agree with that statement, 54% don't. So pretty close to a 50-50 split. And also among those who see spirituality as important. So they are, in their minds, separating spirituality and religion. And 53% say religion is mostly harmful. Now, you do notice that this drops off very quickly with practicing Christians, of course, and also especially with evangelicals who see religion as a very good thing in the country. So now let's look at the spiritual but not religious 1 and 2 and some others, although there's a small group here, on spiritual practices. So if you look at this, spiritual but not religious 1 and 2 both spend a lot of time in nature reflecting. And I've talked a great deal about Thoreau and the Transcendentalists as part of the Unitarian tradition here. And yeah, you can see this Transcendentalist idea going straight through American culture up to our own day. After the ideas of spending time in nature, the number 2 spiritual practice preferred is meditation. And we've talked before about this, that meditation is the spiritual term, the religious term of this, and mindfulness is now really a secular term for the benefits of meditation without any religious trappings at all. And there are lots of apps out there, as I've mentioned before. Practice silence and or solitude. Again, very high numbers of people who are spiritual but not religious, dropping off pretty quickly with practicing Christians. Prayer, up, you'll see here that, less than a quarter of the spiritual but not religious think that that's important. Notice that practicing Christians and evangelicals do not agree with that statement. Journaling or writing your thoughts, that's very popular among Unitarian Universalists and humanists, is writing out how you feel, gratitude journals and that kind of thing. But and notice that at that point, this kind of enters into an American standard that the percentages don't look that different. Yoga, very popular, at least, partially popular among spiritual but not religious, and actually against their religion when you get down to the idea of evangelicals. Reading books on spiritual topics. I have talked before about the so-called Barnes and Noble Buddhists. That is that many of us folk go to bookstores and or libraries and check out those books and read up on Hinduism, Buddhism, and that kind of thing. Notice scripture reading. Now, we do have our Beer and Bible for our Bible study for humanists, but look, we're kind of in the minority in that as humanists. But look over here at practicing Christians and evangelicals. So there you go with the spiritual but not religious. But it's not only liberals who are leaving. The numbers are shocking when you look at the United Church of Christ, which is a very liberal denomination. But let's look now at the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, the Southern Baptist Convention, 1950 to 2014, wow, right? Straight up for quite some time until a peak in about 2006, 2008. But now notice it's going down, and it's going down precipitously, although it's certainly not going down like the United Church of Christ. This is from 2019, the Southern Baptist Convention Church Profile. They have 14 million members. That's quite a few here in the United States. This is an American religious tradition, basically Southern. And look here, minus 287,000 plus. And of course, those of you who know the numbers about Unitarian Universalists, that's more people than we even have in our Unitarian Universalist congregations that they lost in 1 year. So there's something going on in the United States, mostly in liberal religion, but also there is something in conservative religion as well that is changing very, very fast. And that's what we want to talk about and look at closely this week. Oh, speaking of scripture reading, Bibles and Beer, a humanist Bible study. Join us 7 o'clock Central Time on Wednesday night. That's the traditional Bible study night. This week, we will be reading Philemon. Philemon is it takes 10 minutes to read. It's 4 chapters, a book purportedly written by the Apostle Paul, and it's used as a way of standing up and supporting slavery. So what does it really say is the question. You will be interested, and we do use the New Revised Standard Version, much more understandable and much closer to the actual Greek. So take a peek at that, and 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening. Thanks for tuning in this morning, and you can help us out by going to PayPal or firstunitarian.org/donate. Keep our voice strong. Also, please sign up on YouTube. We have 2 channels, Den of Conversation and our First Unitarian Society that has our assemblies on it. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk tomorrow.